I still remember how my hands shook that morning. The coffee mug slipped from my grip and shattered on the kitchen floor, but I barely heard it. My eyes were glued to my phone screen, the banking app showing a balance of $0 where $115,000 should have been. I refreshed the screen again and again, thinking it must be a glitch. But deep down, I already knew. 10 years of saving, of skipping vacations and working double shifts as an art teacher, of saying no to dinners out and new clothes, all gone in an instant. I called the bank in a panic, my voice cracking as I explained. The customer service rep sounded genuinely sorry as she confirmed my worst fear. The funds were withdrawn yesterday afternoon. When she told me where the money had gone, transfers to 3 different online casinos, my blood turned cold. Only one person had access to my account details. My sister, Amber, the golden child. My parents' favorite, and now the person who had stolen everything I'd worked for my entire adult life. The money I'd planned to use that very day to sign the lease on the old firehouse downtown, the building that would finally become the community arts center I'd dreamed about since college. The safe place I never had growing up, where kids could express themselves through painting, dance, and music, free from judgment. Amber and I shared a Google Doc with our passwords years ago, when we were still close. I'd changed most of my passwords since then, but not my banking password. Stupid mistake. I scrolled through the transaction history, feeling sick. 3 separate transfers, all to gambling sites that I recognized from Amber's past occasional gaming that our parents always dismissed. $40,000, $35,000, $40,000, all gone within 6 hours. Each transfer required verification through my email, which meant she'd gotten into that too. I checked my deleted folder. There they were, the verification emails, already emptied from trash but recoverable. The timestamps showed they were accessed and deleted minutes after arriving. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was planned, calculated. Betrayal cut deep into my chest. I'd trusted her all my life, looked up to her. And now she had stolen my dream of opening a community arts center for the kids in our small Wisconsin town. Kids who had nowhere to go, nothing creative to do. Kids like I once was. I leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor, my legs too weak to hold me. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. I should call the police. I should report this theft. But this was my sister. My only sister. The person who'd helped me through our grandmother's death, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stood up for me when kids bullied me in middle school. How could she have done this to me? I drove to Amber's apartment across town, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. When she opened the door, her eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. She knew I'd found out. "Lena, I can explain," she started, but I pushed past her into the messy living room. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tornado inside me. "Where's my money?" She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing into her hands. "I lost it," she whispered. "I lost it all." The room spun around me. "All of it? In one day?" She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "I thought I could double it for you. I was on a winning streak at first, up to $180,000. I was going to surprise you with the extra money, but then I cut her off. "You stole from me. You stole my entire life." Her face hardened suddenly. "Don't be so dramatic, Lena. It's just money." The casual dismissal hit me like a slap. I looked around her apartment, the expensive leather, furniture, the designer handbags carelessly tossed on chairs, the huge TV mounted on the wall. All things our parents had helped her buy over the years. Amber had never saved for anything. She'd never had to. And now she stood in her expensive clothes, telling me that my decade of sacrifice was just money. I stepped toward her, shaking with rage. Just money? That was everything to me, Amber. Everything. Just money. Just 10 years of my life. Just my dream. Just the future of dozens of kids who needed a safe place. I stared at my sister, this stranger wearing her face. "I want you to tell Mom and Dad what you did," I said. Amber's eyes widened. "No, please, Lena, they can't know." But I was already dialing. 20 minutes later, we sat in our parents' living room, the same room where our childhood photos lined the walls, the same room where Amber was always praised for her achievements, while my art prizes gathered dust in a drawer. I let Amber explain what she'd done. Mom gasped. Dad went pale. Then they both turned to me, expressions full of concern. Not anger at Amber, concern for her. Lena, Dad said carefully, your sister made a terrible mistake, but you can't report this. She'll go to jail. Mom nodded, taking Amber's hand. We'll figure something out. Family protects family. I watched in disbelief as Mom stroked Amber's hair, comforting her as she cried. No one asked how I felt. No one acknowledged that I was the victim here. It was always this way with them. Amber breaks something, and everyone rushes to pick up the pieces, even when she broke me. She committed a felony, I said flatly. She stole over $100,000. Dad shook his head, his expression hardening. We don't get the police involved in family matters, Lena. You know that. I looked at them, these people who raised me, who taught me right from wrong. She stole over $100,000 from me, I said slowly. That's not a mistake, that's a crime. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. She has a problem, Lena. She needs help, not punishment. Dad leaned forward, his voice dropping to that authoritative tone he'd used since we were kids. You can save that money again. You're young. But if you report this, your sister's life is over. Her career, her future, everything. Is that what you want? I stayed silent, letting their words wash over me. They thought I was the villain here, the unreasonable one, the bad sister who wouldn't forgive. I stood up, my decision already made. I'll think about it. I lied. Their relieved smiles followed me out the door. They had no idea what I was about to do. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, replaying the last hour in my head. Save the money again, Dad had said, as if a decade of my life could be casually replaced. As if the art center, which I'd been planning for years, researching programs, designing curriculums, was just some whim, not worth protecting. I'd always known they favored Amber, the pretty one, the charming one, but I'd never realized how deep it went until now. How completely they would throw me aside to protect her. It felt like a second betrayal, cutting even deeper than the first. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, surrounded by printouts and screenshots, bank statements, email recovery logs, text messages where Amber had asked about my account details months ago, claiming she needed to compare bank features. I organized everything chronologically, made copies, saved digital backups. I wasn't just angry, I was methodical. When the police station opened at 8 a.m., I was waiting outside. The officer who took my statement was a woman about my age. She listened without interrupting, her eyes growing wider as I laid out the evidence. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of identity theft I've seen, she said finally. Most people don't document things this thoroughly. She didn't ask why I was reporting my own sister. She didn't have to. When I signed the official police report, my hand was perfectly steady. It was the calmest I'd felt since seeing that zero balance. In a strange way, taking action was therapeutic. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was fighting back. Officer Garcia promised to contact me once they moved forward with the case. It usually takes a few days, she explained. As I turned to leave, she added quietly, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Family or not, this was a serious crime. Her words steadied me. At least someone believed I deserved justice. My phone exploded with notifications around noon. Amber had been picked up for questioning. Dad called 7 times in a row. Mom sent a stream of text messages that evolved from confusion to disbelief to rage. How could you do this to your sister? The last one read. I turned off my phone and went to my afternoon art class. 25 kids greeted me with smiles, not knowing their teacher had just blown up her entire family. I taught them about perspective that day, how changing your viewpoint can transform your entire world. During free drawing time, a quiet girl named Maya showed me her sketch of a big, colorful building labeled Art Center. Is this what you're going to build, Miss Walsh? She asked. My throat tightened. I'm still working on it, I managed to say. I wouldn't let these kids down, no matter what it took. After class, I sat alone in my classroom, the children's artwork surrounding me like silent witnesses to my resolve. My principal, Mrs. Hernandez, knocked on the doorframe. Everything okay, Lena? You seem distracted today. I almost broke down then, the simple kindness in her voice nearly undoing me. Instead, I straightened my shoulders. Family trouble, I said, but I'm handling it. She nodded, not prying. If you need anything, time off, someone to talk to, my door is always open. I thanked her, realizing that kindness from a near stranger felt more genuine than anything my family had offered lately. 3 days later, I turned my phone back on. 56 missed calls, 38 voicemails, 93 text messages. I scrolled through them all, numb to the accusations and pleas. Then I saw an email from Detective Rivera. Amber had confessed. The evidence was too overwhelming to deny. She was being charged with felony theft and identity fraud. The email ended with, "Miss Walsh, you might want to prepare yourself. Family cases like this often get complicated." An understatement of the year. I took a deep breath and called my parents. Mom answered, her voice cold. "So you're finally ready to talk to us?" I stayed calm. Amber confessed. She admitted to planning this for months. Dad grabbed the phone. "You've destroyed this family," he hissed. "Amber might go to prison because you couldn't handle things privately." I felt an unexpected wave of clarity wash over me. "No, Dad. Amber destroyed this family when she stole from me. I'm just refusing to be her victim." There was silence on the other end of the line, then the sound of my father's heavy breathing. "Your mother is crying herself to sleep every night," he said, his voice thick with accusation. "Amber might lose her job at the bank. She could lose her apartment. Everything she's worked for, gone. And for what? Money? Things? Is that all that matters to you?" I closed my eyes, steadying myself. What matters is that actions have consequences, even for the golden child. I hung up before he could respond. Word spreads fast in small towns. At the grocery store, Mrs. Patel at the checkout counter squeezed my hand silently. My neighbor left a casserole on my porch with a note, "Whatever you need." My principal called me into her office, not to reprimand me, but to offer support. "The school board has your back, Lena," she said. "Take whatever time you need." But there were others, friends of my parents who crossed the street to avoid me, Amber's boyfriend who keyed my car, former classmates who whispered, "Family traitor," when I walked by. I held my head high. I had done nothing wrong. Amber's preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month. I would have to face her in court, look into the eyes of my only sister, and publicly confirm that I wanted her prosecuted. The thought made me sick. But I never once considered backing down. At night, I dreamed of the art center that would never be. The empty firehouse downtown would probably go to some chain store now. The mural designs I'd sketched, the grant proposals I'd drafted, the curriculum outlines, all pointless now. Some mornings I woke up feeling so empty that getting out of bed seemed impossible. But then I'd remember what Officer Garcia said. I deserved justice. And somehow I'd find the strength to face another day. Amber's lawyer negotiated a plea deal. In exchange for my agreement, she would get 2 years of house arrest, mandatory gambling addiction treatment, and 5 years of probation. No prison time. When Detective Rivera called with the offer, I accepted immediately. I never wanted to see Amber suffer. I just wanted justice. And maybe, someday, my money back. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully in a simple blue dress. Professional, but not flashy. I wanted the judge to see me as a responsible teacher, not a vengeful sister. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with hard wooden benches that creaked when I sat down. Amber entered with her lawyer. She'd lost weight and dark circles shadowed her eyes. For a moment, she looked like the sister who had protected me from bullies in elementary school. Then she saw me, and her face hardened with hatred. The sister I knew was truly gone. As the proceedings began, I noticed my parents slip into the back row. They sat directly behind Amber, not even looking in my direction. Mom reached forward to squeeze Amber's shoulder. Dad nodded encouragingly. Their united front excluded me completely. I sat alone on my side of the courtroom, back straight, eyes forward. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, gave me a reassuring nod. At least someone was on my side. When the judge asked if I approved of the plea agreement, my voice came out clear and firm. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." The judge approved the plea deal, but added something unexpected. The defendant is ordered to make full restitution to the victim in the amount of $115,000. Amber's lawyer quickly interjected, explaining that his client had no money or assets. The judge fixed Amber with a stern look. Then she will set up a payment plan through the court. This debt will follow her until it's paid. I felt no triumph, only tired relief that the hearing was over. As I gathered my things to leave, my father blocked my path. "I hope you're satisfied," he said, his voice shaking with anger. Your mother can barely get out of bed. Amber's life is in shambles, all because you couldn't forgive one mistake. I looked into his eyes, the same deep brown as mine, and saw nothing but disappointment. This wasn't a mistake, Dad. It was a choice. She chose to steal from me, and you chose her, again. I walked around him and out the courthouse doors. The spring air felt fresh after the stuffy courtroom. I took deep breaths, trying to steady myself. A text chimed on my phone. It was Mrs. Hernandez, my principal. How did it go? The simple question of concern almost broke me. I sat on a bench outside the courthouse, typing out a brief reply. When I looked up, my mother was standing a few feet away, her face pinched with hurt and anger. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then, without a word, she turned and walked back inside. That silent exchange said everything. I was now officially an outcast. 2 months passed. Amber's repayment plan was a joke. $50 a month would take her 192 years to repay my savings. I consulted a lawyer who specialized in civil recovery. You can file a lien against her future earnings and property, she explained. If she ever comes into money, inheritance, lottery, better job, you'll be first in line to collect. I filed the paperwork the next day. That evening, my mother called. Her voice was different, softer, almost pleading. Lena, honey, we need to talk. Your father and I have been thinking. We want to help make this right. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Were they finally taking my side? That's why, she continued. We're giving Amber the money to pay you back. I gripped the phone tighter. What money? Our retirement fund. We're withdrawing it to clear Amber's debt. On one condition. You drop all the charges and liens, and we put this whole ugly business behind us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were willing to empty their retirement savings to bail Amber out, yet again. But not because they thought I deserved justice, only to free their favorite daughter from consequences. They'd never offered to help me save for the art center, never offered to contribute to my dream. But they'd sacrifice their future for Amber without hesitation. The unfairness of it all made me dizzy with anger. The same old pattern, playing out one more time. The audacity stunned me. They were using their retirement savings not because they thought I deserved justice, but to free Amber from consequences. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're willing to empty your retirement fund for Amber, but when she stole my entire life savings, you told me to just save it again? My mother's silence was answer enough. The money isn't the point anymore, I continued. Amber needs to take responsibility for once in her life. Mom's voice turned cold. Then I guess we're done here. Don't contact us again until you're ready to be part of this family. The call ended. That night, I cried until no tears remained. Then I opened my laptop and began typing. The words flowed easily. My sister stole my life savings and gambled it all away. My parents stopped talking to me when they found out what I did next. I posted it anonymously on Reddit before I could change my mind. I woke to my phone buzzing constantly. My Reddit post had exploded overnight. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments. People shared similar stories of family betrayal. Others offered legal advice or just simple support. You did the right thing. Stay strong. Your parents failed you twice. I read every comment, tears streaming down my face. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel alone. Then came a private message. I'm a producer for the podcast Family Secrets. Would you consider telling your story? Another message followed. Have you considered starting a GoFundMe for your art center? People want to help. I hadn't thought of that. My dream had seemed so thoroughly dead that I hadn't even considered rebuilding it. But these strangers on the internet believed in me more than my own family did. Maybe it was time I started believing too. I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the morning light spread across my neighborhood. Birds sang in the trees lining my street. A gentle breeze carried the scent of someone's flowering garden. The world kept turning, despite everything. And suddenly I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. A fragile, tentative hope, but real nonetheless. These strangers' kindness had pierced through my grief. Maybe my dream wasn't dead, just transformed. Maybe this betrayal could lead to something even better. I opened my laptop again and began to type. The GoFundMe went live that afternoon. I used no names, just my story and my dream for the community arts center. I asked for $50,000, enough to secure a lease and start small. I expected a few $100s, maybe $1,000 if I was lucky. Within 3 hours, the campaign hit $10,000. By dinner, it reached $45,000. I stared at my screen in disbelief as the number kept climbing. People I'd never met were leaving comments. Art saved my life as a kid. Teachers like you matter. Don't let them win. At midnight, the total stood at $78,000. I curled up in bed, holding my phone like a lifeline. A text came through from an unknown number. Saw your post. Not all families are blood. Some of us choose each other. Hang in there. It was signed, Maya's mom. My student's mother. I fell asleep with tears on my pillow, but they weren't tears of sadness. The next morning, the total had jumped again. $120,000. Someone had shared my GoFundMe on Twitter, where it caught the attention of a famous children's author who donated $5,000 and urged her followers to contribute. Local news outlets began emailing me for interviews. The art teacher community rallied, sharing my campaign in their networks. By noon, we passed $150,000. I called in sick to work, too overwhelmed to teach. Instead, I sat on my couch watching in awe as strangers rebuilt what my sister had destroyed. The GoFundMe hit $250,000 within a week. News outlets picked up the story. Anonymous teacher rebuilds dream after family betrayal, read one headline. I stayed anonymous, but people in town figured it out. They'd seen the court case, heard the rumors. The local paper ran a feature on the planned art center without naming me directly. My principal called me into her office again. There's a vacant building on Maple Street, the old firehouse, she said. The school board has connections. They might be able to help you get it at a good price. I hugged her, overwhelmed by the kindness. Walking back to my classroom, I passed the teacher's lounge and overheard 2 colleagues whispering. Did you hear about Amber Sullivan? Lost her job at the bank. Guess they don't want thieves handling money. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt hollow. That evening, while grabbing coffee at the local cafe, I spotted my mother across the street. Our eyes met briefly before she hurried away, head down. A small part of me wanted to run after her, to try one more time to make her understand. But then I remembered her words. Don't contact us until you're ready to be part of this family. On their terms, their conditions. Their version of family, where Amber could steal from me and still be the victim. I turned away and walked in the opposite direction. The gap between us felt like miles now, probably uncrossable. And for the first time, I wondered if that might be for the best. The real estate agent handed me the keys with a wide smile. Congratulations, Miss Walsh. The firehouse is yours. I'd paid cash. No mortgage, no loans. The red brick building needed work, but its bones were good. High ceilings, big windows, open space, perfect for art studios and dance rooms and music classes. As I walked through empty rooms that echoed with possibility, I imagined children's laughter bouncing off these walls, teens finding their voices through poetry and paint. A safe haven for creativity in a town that desperately needed one. I spun around in the center of what would become the main gallery, arms outstretched, and laughed out loud. For a brief, shining moment, I forgot about Amber, forgot about my parents, forgot about everything except this dream coming true. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my father. We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow. 2 p.m. The bubble of joy popped instantly. I sank onto the dusty floor, suddenly exhausted. Why now? Why reach out after weeks of silence? Probably because they'd heard about the GoFundMe, about the building, about my surprising success. Were they finally ready to support me? Or did they just want to control the narrative now that I was in the public eye? I typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally sending, I'll be there. Whatever they wanted, I was strong enough to face it now. I arrived at my childhood home exactly at 2 p.m. The front door was unlocked as always. Inside, Mom and Dad sat stiffly on the sofa. Amber was not there. Sit down, Lena, Dad said. I remained standing. Mom looked thinner, older. Dad seemed deflated, the authority drained from his posture. We've heard about your new building, Mom began. The arts center you always wanted. I nodded, waiting. We also heard about the money, with the fundraiser. Dad cleared his throat. We want to donate, to show our support. I stared at them, trying to process this unexpected turn. Why? I finally asked. Because we're proud of you, Mom said, but her eyes slid away from mine. Because we want to be a family again, Dad added. Then I understood. It wasn't about supporting me. It was about their reputation. They couldn't stand being the parents who chose their thief daughter over their successful one. No, I said quietly, I don't want your money. Dad's face reddened with surprise. They'd clearly expected me to gratefully accept, to come crawling back now that they'd extended the small olive branch. But it was too little, too late. Where was this support when I'd spent years saving every penny? Where was this pride when I'd lost everything? Their conditional love felt hollow now, offered only after public opinion had turned against them. I looked around the living room, at the family photos still displayed prominently, Amber's graduation, her dance recitals, her awards. My achievements were notably absent. Nothing had really changed. You're being ridiculous, Dad sputtered. After everything, we're trying to make amends. I shook my head. You're not making amends. You're trying to buy back your reputations. Mom began to cry, those manipulative tears I'd seen all my life. How can you be so cruel? We're your parents. Something inside me broke free. A lifetime of being the good daughter, of swallowing my feelings to keep peace. Where was this support when Amber stole from me? Where was this generosity when I lost everything? You told me to save again while you tried to protect her from consequences. You aren't sorry about what happened. You're sorry that people know. I walked toward the door, then turned back. My art center opens in 3 months. It's called Second Chances, but I don't think we get a second chance. Goodbye. I closed the door on their shocked faces, knowing it would likely be the last time I entered that house. Outside, I leaned against my car, breathing deeply to calm my racing heart. I'd imagined this confrontation so many times, rehearsed what I would say, but the reality felt both worse and better than I'd expected. Worse because I was officially cutting ties with my family. Better because, for the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself without compromise. A weight lifted from my shoulders as I drove away, the burden of seeking approval from people who would never truly give it. I was free now, to build my life without their conditional love hanging over me like a sword. The next morning, a letter arrived. Amber's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. 4 pages, front and back. Not an apology, but a screed of accusations. I was vindictive. Attention-seeking. Had always been jealous of her. The money quote came on page 3. You've ruined my life over money. Was it worth it? Mom and Dad will never forgive you. I laughed without humor. Even now, she couldn't see what she'd done wrong. I crumpled the pages and tossed them in the recycling bin. Then I headed to the firehouse where contractors were starting renovations. The foreman greeted me with blueprints and questions about light fixtures. As we discussed options, a woman approached hesitantly. Miss Walsh? I'm Dina, Maya's mom. We texted. I recognized her from parent meetings. Maya talks about you all the time. She wants to be an artist because of you. How can I help with this place? Her earnest offer brought tears to my eyes. Here was someone who owed me nothing, yet wanted to help build something positive. By the time she left, we had made plans to meet again with more volunteers. Word spread through town. Volunteers appeared at the firehouse, parents, former students, colleagues. They painted walls, built shelves, donated art supplies. A local businessman offered to fund scholarships for low-income kids. The mother of a former student organized a supply drive. Even the mayor stopped by, promising city support. I worked alongside them all, grateful beyond words. One afternoon, as I sorted donated paintbrushes, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Is this Lena Walsh? A woman's voice asked. This is Jennifer Lee from NPR. We'd like to interview you about second chances for our Community Heroes segment. My heart raced. National coverage would bring attention to our cause, maybe inspire similar centers elsewhere. But it would also make my story even more public. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed. One condition, I said. We focus on the center and its mission, not the family drama. Of course, she replied. We want to talk about rebuilding, not just survival. The day of the interview, I sat in my newly painted office, surrounded by the bright artwork of my students. As I spoke, I realized how much stronger I had become. The interview aired 2 weeks before our opening. I spoke about art as healing, about creating safe spaces for expression, about community coming together. I never mentioned Amber or my parents by name, referring only to a family situation that led to unexpected support. But everyone who knew me understood. My phone buzzed with congratulations all day. Former classmates reached out. Distant relatives sent messages of support. Even my college art professor called to say he'd heard the interview while driving. "You always had vision, Lena," he said. "I'm proud of you." Opening day arrived with perfect weather, sunshine and clear skies. A line formed outside before we even unlocked the doors. Families with children, teenagers, seniors, all waiting to see this place built by community and kindness. At 10 a.m., with local news cameras rolling, I cut the red ribbon. Cheers erupted as people streamed inside, exclaiming over the bright studios and performance spaces. I moved through the crowd, greeting everyone, answering questions, watching dreams take shape in real time. As the day continued, I caught glimpses of familiar faces in the crowd. Mrs. Hernandez, beaming with pride. Dina showing visitors around as if she owned the place too. A community had rallied around this vision, turning what was once my solitary dream into a shared reality. That afternoon, I stood on a small stage in the main gallery, facing hundreds of smiling faces. My voice shook slightly as I began my speech. Second chances isn't just a name, it's a philosophy. Sometimes life takes an unexpected turn. Sometimes people let you down, but there's always another path forward if you're brave enough to take it. I saw people nodding, some wiping away tears. This center exists because of all of you, this community that chose to believe in art, in children, in possibility. I paused, gathering courage for what came next. And sometimes, people will ask you to choose between what's kind and what's right. I believe true kindness includes justice, especially to yourself. The applause was deafening. As it died down, I noticed movement at the back of the room. My parents stood awkwardly by the exit. They hadn't been invited. They made no move to approach me. After a moment, they slipped out the door. Their appearance caught me off guard. Had they come to make amends? To cause a scene? Or simply to witness what I had built without them? I would probably never know. 1 year later, Second Chances Art Center serves over 500 children weekly. We've added music programs, creative writing workshops, and a small theater group. The waiting list grows each month. I've hired 5 full-time teachers and expanded into the building next door. My story has faded from headlines, though occasionally a new reporter discovers it and requests an interview. I decline most. This isn't about me anymore. It's about the kids who find their voices here. Amber moved to another state after completing her house arrest. My parents still live in town, but we exist in separate orbits, occasionally glimpsing each other at grocery stores or gas stations, exchanging the briefest of nods before looking away. Amber has paid back $1,200 so far. I don't expect to see the rest, and that's okay. Some debts can't be repaid with money. Sometimes a stolen dream leads to a better one. Sometimes the family you lose gives way to the family you find. And sometimes, the only second chance that matters is the one you give yourself. The center will stand long after our family drama is forgotten. And that's precisely how it should be.